Now, recently there's been a lot of rumors about Lucasfilm finally exploring the Old Republic time period in the new canon, with some reports saying one of the new trilogies in the works will be set in that time period, and others saying we'll be getting a live-action series on the Disney Plus streaming service that's set somewhere in it. And with all these possibilities swirling around, I figured it was a good topic for a Let's Talk Some Star Wars video. And so I asked all of you in this week's poll, how should the new canon handle the Old Republic time period? And as you can see, 56% of the 22,000 who voted thought that what already exists should basically be made canon, with no real major changes, and that they should then just carry on from there. With another 19% then saying some parts should be kept, others redone, and then it should carry on from there, while another 13% said that what exists should be turned into a vague outline for the time period, which left just 2% saying they want it completely wiped out and redone, and 10% who just want Disney and Lucasfilm to leave that time period alone completely. And what I'm going to do now is just jump right into the comments, and much like last week's video, I'll give a few quick candid responses here and there, or throw in my 2 cents from time to time if you will, before then giving my own brief thoughts or summary at the end. Because I really want these weekly videos to give you all the chance to have your say, and to maybe give some very different perspectives or points of view from just what I would give you. And as usual, we'll start off with the top rated comment and then move on to others, some of which I'll have handpicked, others that I'll have selected because they were highly rated, and some that are just randomly chosen out of the rest so that, potentially, everyone who has responded has a chance to be heard. Anyway, let's get started, and the top rated comment came to us from Daniel Chilvers, who said, "To be honest, just pretend everything that was once canon is still canon and forget this whole Disney fiasco." And yeah, you can absolutely do that if you want. You can put whatever you want in your own personal canon and read or watch whatever you choose to. You can completely ignore everything new. And if that makes you happy, then go for it. However, unfortunately so, what Lucasfilm says is canon is officially canon. Okay, let's now move on to a comment from Echoes of Malachor. And with a name like that, I'm guessing this means quite a bit to them. Anyway, they said, "No, like the original trilogy and prequel trilogy, there was a lot of time and passion put into creating the stories around the old canon. Artists and creators crafted some truly great content, albeit flawed. Keep Disney away from it. They've already swung a wrecking ball into the work of enough Star Wars creators' work." And I can certainly see your perspective here. It does feel unfair that all these writers or artists or other creators put all this time and effort into all these characters and stories, only to then have them initially wiped away, and then to have others come in and redo them. That, again, that doesn't seem very fair. However, my hope would be that they could get some of those original creators to come in and do some work on the projects, much like they had Timothy Zahn come in and write a new Thrawn trilogy after they put Thrawn into Rebels. Okay, let's get to another comment here. This one from Kaiser von Enric, who said, "Voting for keeping the old stuff canon. This is never going to happen, as it would be stupid from Disney's perspective not to erase the old already sold stories in order to be able to resell similar new stuff made by them. It's sadly all about the money, but I still voted for it. Some of the old material is really good stuff, and a man can dream." And yeah, we can certainly dream, though I do think you're absolutely right. Whatever makes the most business sense for them, or whatever makes Disney and Lucasfilm the most money, is likely how they're going to proceed with the Old Republic. Alright, let's now get to a comment from Dylan's Little Hobbies on YouTube, who said, "I want a new story that feels like the old one, but surprises me in a different way." So in other words, you want your expectations subverted in a way that doesn't ruin what you've always loved about the story. Wow, it's a radical concept that I hope they can find a way to do, because yeah, eventually they probably will go back to tell these stories again, and when they do, I hope they can add a new twist without ruining what they've always been. Oh, and Dylan, your name suggested you had your own little YouTube channel where you talked about the things you loved, and I decided to check it out, and let me just tell you, keep doing what you're doing, because you never know where talking about the things you love can get you. Alright, next up, let's get to a comment from Chris Evans, who said, "Ever seen the Star Wars multiverse theory? The Old Republic games are the origins of it. Lightside KOTOR 1 ending plus Lightside KOTOR 2 ending equals Legends canon. This is official along with male Revan and female Exile. Darkside KOTOR ending 1 plus Darkside KOTOR ending 2 equals Disney canon. There's even evidence to support this with Malachor being intact in Rebels, which is the KOTOR Darkside 2 ending, and the First Order appearing to use Starforge technology. That's how they should handle the Old Republic. Embrace the multiple timelines." And though I've never heard this particular theory before, it does sound like there's a plausible way to do it considering we have the world between worlds. Now, I don't know if multiple realities is something that many Star Wars fans would be into. It sounds more like Star Trek or Marvel Comics, and I'd be interested to know what people think about such an idea in the comments below. Alright, next up we have a comment here from Isaiah Smith who said, "For the love of God, leave it alone. Unless you get an ideas person who just wants to craft good stories and a good business person to greenlight and shepherd projects." And yeah, if we're not getting people in there who actually have a passion for the project, then no, please do not ever go to the Old Republic. Alright, let's now move on to a comment from Rogue Fox who said, "Just as long as they don't change anything too much and keep some of the original material around, I'm fine with them exploring this era." And yeah, like I said before, I'm relatively okay with them changing a few things, just as long as they keep it the same at its core, and again, get passionate people in there who really want to explore this time period and tell these stories. Alright, now a comment from Ars Morandi411, and I think I said that right. Anyway, they said, "Whatever they do, at least approach it with a plan this time. It doesn't work when writers-directors just yell, 'Tag, you're it,' and then run away." And yeah, the sequel trilogy has felt a bit like a game of tag, or maybe like a tag team wrestling match where J.J. Abrams started, then he tagged in Rian Johnson, and now Rian Johnson has tagged J.J. back in. And hopefully he can do something besides just rolling over and getting pinned with Episode 9. Alright, let's now move on to a comment from Delilah Silva who said, "I think using the existing material as an outline or template will go a long way to keep longtime fans, especially those already familiar with Legends material in general, while at the same time keeping interest by telling fresh and new stories that casual fans can keep up with, even without knowing much about the lore. It's the best of both worlds between keeping it all, which could make it stagnant to Uber fans and unrelatable to casual ones, versus keeping nothing which will alienate the Uber fans and won't do any better among casual ones." And yeah, I agree, you do have to try to find the best of both worlds here, or a happy middle ground. You have to create something that the Uber fans are going to like without destroying everything they've always loved about this time period, or watering it down to the point where they just don't care, yet you still have to create something that can introduce this time period to the fans who know absolutely nothing about it. Alright, next up a comment from Mr. GamerFan77 who said, "Use Legends as a vague outline. Major characters from Legends should return, like Bane and Darth Revan, but have their backstories changed so there is some element of originality in the new canon, and have the opportunity to change the bad parts of Legends. Two things I would make sure of for Disney's sake is to still keep the essence, like major character traits, personality, or why the character is loved and cherished, or uniqueness of the character, kind of like what they did with Thrawn in the new books and Rebels, and have Dave Filoni be in charge of overseeing the world-building storyboard of the Old Republic era." Side note, part of the reason why I think they did Thrawn relatively well, if we're comparing to what they did to Luke in The Last Jedi, is because they kept the core essence of the character alive in the new canon. The only one I trust at Lucasfilm to get this task right is Dave, quote-unquote, the God, Filoni. And yeah, I also trust Filoni, and I think he should be, maybe not president of Lucasfilm, because I don't know if he knows the business end of things, but he should definitely be in charge of story development. I think such an announcement would really get a lot of fans excited and hopeful for the future at this point. Alright, the next comment comes to us from Droid Walks Into a Bar who said, "I think they should use the old stories as a guideline for the new ones, and adopt some of the storylines themes to fit the new canon. For example, I think they should mostly keep the established Revan lore. However, they should make new stories about Lord Momin, who we've seen in the Vader comics, and how he devastated Mustafar." And yeah, I'd be all for some new stories about Momin or other brand new Sith that they create in this time period. And that's the thing, they don't have to just go back and retread over everything they've already done. There's plenty of time and space to do completely new things in the Old Republic. Let's now move on to a comment from Abraham Schumann who said, "I like the Old Republic cinematic trailers better than the new Star Wars." And all I'll say to that is some of those Old Republic cinematic trailers are absolutely phenomenal. Some of the best Star Wars I've seen anywhere, and I'm not kidding. And if you've never seen them, go check them out right now. You're probably going to love them even if you don't know the first thing about the Old Republic. Okay, let's get to a few more comments before wrapping this up. The first one comes to us from Brian Bridges who said, "They should use the old material as much as they can. I understand that Disney will want to do its own thing, and they should, otherwise there is no point in exploring this area. But a lot of us grown fans aren't going to feel like it's Star Wars when the material is all completely different. And I also think Disney should honor the people who labored to build the old Star Wars universe. So it would be in their best interest to keep at least 50% of the established material canon." And yet again, I agree here. If you're going to go back to this time period, or when they go back to this time period, I hope they do all they can to not only honor the stories told, but to honor the people who actually told those stories as well. Which brings us to a comment from Tristan Robertson, who said, Lucasfilm ostracized its most hardcore fan base the moment they marked the EU as Legends. All those stories abandoned so that they could have creative freedom, while they constantly borrow elements from Legends, often making it worse. Make new stories for those who are interested in new canon, and publish Legends stories again, like something akin to Marvel's Ultimate Universe. And yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised they didn't do something like this and carry on with Legends. That would have made them even more money, and there's plenty of authors out there, I'm sure, who would love to continue those stories. Now, maybe their reason is they don't want to confuse people about what's new canon or what's old canon, but if you go in any bookstore, they still sell all the old EU books and they just have the Legends logo on it. So I don't know why you couldn't just keep making new books and put the Legends logo on it. Alright, the last comment we're going to get to comes to us from Morden Gray, who simply says, I'm with the majority on this one, but I will say, if anything else, at least use the time period as a vague outline. And in closing here now, despite the results of the poll, the comments were mostly from people who just didn't want Disney and Lucasfilm to take on this time period because they were afraid they'd screw it up. Which is of course fair enough, because thus far, they've missed the mark with the sequel trilogy in the eyes of a great many of the fans. However, as I've said before in this video, I think it's only a matter of time before they get to the Old Republic era in some capacity, whether it be a movie trilogy or a TV show or a series of books, comics, or whatever it is. Rest assured, they will explore it. I mean, if there's money to be made, they'll go out there and make it. And though I personally think I'd like to see some new stories told in this time period, and there's plenty of room to do it, I wouldn't ever want it to come at the expense of what has already existed there. And yet at the same time, I also think it'd be a shame if we never got to see characters like Revan brought into the new canon and explored further. Though it'd probably be a bigger shame to bring these new characters in and change them to the point where they're not the same as they were. Thrawn is probably the best example of this, and though I'm happy he's part of the new canon, and I did like him in Rebels, and the first 2 books in his new trilogy have been pretty damn good, he's certainly not the same character as we see in the Thrawn trilogy. Now, a big problem with that is they introduced him in a kids show, which might not have been the best time and place, considering the real Thrawn is, shall we say, not very kid-friendly. So if they're going to do stories about characters like Revan or Bane, 2 of my personal favorites, and bring them into the new canon, though technically Bane is canon, I really hope they pick the right time and place to do it, and they try their damnedest to do justice to the way these characters have always been known to us. And I know some of you out there will think that's not even possible, or that they just don't care enough to even try to do real justice to these characters. But I do believe, or hope, if they really want to, they could easily enough find and hire the right people to make it happen in a way that most fans will appreciate. However, like I said in the video that kind of led to this discussion, it just might be time for Disney and Lucasfilm to move to an entirely new time and place in the galaxy, and see what they can make of Star Wars without having to rely on what others have done before, and without tampering with the things fans already love as is. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to tell me what you think should be done with the Old Republic time period in the new canon, or to suggest a topic or question for next week's Let's Talk Some Star Wars video. Either way, let me know what you have to say in the comments below, and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.